And Lisa, if you want to go ahead and enable interpretation, I have a separate line that isn't an interpreter, so it's okay.
Might be difficult for me to bring it up right now, now that we're starting the meet, but thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Northeast Trails Exploration Community Meeting. I am Lisa Kasanovich with Houston Parks Board.
Hola a todos, bienvenidos y buenas noches. Me llamo Lisa Kasanovich y de parte de Houston Parks and Rec Board, bienvenidos a la sesión de esta noche.
This community meeting is being hosted by Harris County Precinct 1. We are happy y'all are joining us, and we will begin at 6:05 p.m.
La junta de hoy está sido presentada por Harris County Precinto 1 y la presentación de hoy va a empezar en unos 5 minutos.
Up until 6:05 p.m., you will hear statements made in English and in Spanish. That is for anyone joining us that may be listening in Spanish, but at 6:05 p.m., we will give instructions as we turn on the interpretation feature, and then you can hear the meeting in the language of your choosing.
Así que la junta de hoy empezará a las 6:05 minutos. Hasta entonces van a estar escuchando mensajes en inglés y en español, y la sesión será transmitida simultáneamente en inglés y en español. Pero hasta que no den las 6:05 minutos, no se encenderá la función de interpretación.
Up until then, we are going to show a series of wonderful pictures that we had taken to provide during the study in our community meetings and at our outreach events. So please enjoy the rolling slideshow of pictures.
Por lo pronto vamos a estar enseñando dispositivos con imágenes de los proyectos que estamos haciendo, así que espero que disfruten las imágenes hasta entonces.
Some of you may have seen these pictures before, but we always like to give a reminder of some of these important areas within the study.
Así que algunos de ustedes ya han visto aquí las imágenes, pero nos gusta darles recordatorios de lo que estamos haciendo para el condado.
Throughout the meeting, if you have questions about the study, definitely feel free to write them in the chat. We will have a question and answer session towards the end of the meeting. So feel free to use that chat to write any questions, comments, or concerns.
Durante la junta de hoy, si tienen comentarios o preguntas, siéntanse con la libertad de poner sus comentarios y preguntas en el chat. Habrá un tiempo para hacer contestaciones de preguntas al final de la sesión de hoy.
For those that just joined us, we will begin the meeting in about 1 minute, just giving people a chance to join.
Para los que se acaban de unir, vamos a empezar la sesión de hoy como dentro de 1 minuto para darle un poquito más de tiempo para que la gente se una a la llamada.
Okay, we are officially at 6:05 p.m., so we will begin the meeting. Again, I'm Lisa Kasanovich, Outreach Manager with the Houston Parks Board, and this is the Northeast Trails Study Community Meeting being hosted by Harris County Precinct 1.
Hola a todos, bienvenidos. Ya son las 6:05, así que vamos a empezar la sesión de hoy. Así que mi nombre es Lisa Kasanovich y estoy representando, y soy la coordinadora del Houston Park Board. Y vamos a empezar la sesión, pues.
We want to let meeting attendees know that we will be offering interpretation in English and in Spanish during today's meeting. For those presenting today, including myself, we can all help by speaking at a moderate pace, loudly and clearly. For all participants who are in this meeting, please don't suffer in silence. If the interpretation feature is not working or you're having other technical difficulties, please let us know in the chat so our interpreters can help you. In a moment, we will turn on the interpretation feature and you'll see a globe in the lower part of your screen with a message about interpretation. You click on the globe and you select the language in which you'd like to participate and listen during the session. We have English and Spanish. If you're joining through a smartphone or a tablet, you will click on the 3 dots on your screen. On the bottom right of your screen, select language interpretation, the language in which you'll listen to the meeting. Click done and you'll be all set.
Así que nuevamente bienvenidas. Les queremos dejar saber que la sesión de hoy va a ser interpretada simultáneamente y vamos a ofrecerles el servicio por medio de Zoom. Para los presentadores de hoy, pueden ayudar hablando a un ritmo moderado, voz alta y claramente en sus micrófonos. Si necesitamos que hablen más despacio o más fuerte, les dejaremos saber a través del chat. Para todos los participantes, por favor, no sufran en silencio. Si la interpretación no está funcionando o está teniendo otras dificultades técnicas, déjenos saber en el chat para poderles asistir. En un momento se encenderá la función de interpretación para Zoom y verán un globo en la parte baja de sus pantallas con un mensaje sobre la interpretación de idiomas. Hagan clic en el globo y elijan el idioma en el que les gustaría participar y escuchar durante la sesión. Si nos acompaña a través de un celular o una tableta, pueden hacer clic en los 3 puntitos en la esquina derecha de la parte baja de su pantalla, elija interpretación de idiomas y después seleccione su idioma. Asegúrese que hacer clic en finalizado botón y estarán listos para escuchar la interpretación. Gracias.
Thank you. Okay, welcome again to the final Northeast Trails Exploration Community Meeting. Harris County Precinct 1 is offering residents of the study area a third opportunity to learn more about this ongoing study to bring a high-quality trail system to neighborhoods along Carpenter's Bayou and in nearby areas, as represented in gray on this slideshow. With the community's help and feedback, the study has been exploring the best options to link parks, schools, and businesses from neighborhoods, be an essential part of our transportation network, and provide a variety of health, economic, and environmental benefits. So we appreciate all of you who have joined us this evening. With that, I will launch our first poll question. We always want to know the zip codes of the people in attendance. And so we have a few options. I don't think anyone's joined by phone, but in case anyone doesn't see it pop up on their screen, I always read it aloud. Oh, we do have someone coming into the room on the phone. So I will read them aloud. We give the options of 77044, 77049, 77530, and 77015. If you're from a different zip code though, please feel free to put that in the chat. We like to kind of get an understanding of all the different zip codes for the people we're interacting with in the meetings. And we only have 2 poll questions, so we appreciate y'all answering this one since it doesn't take too long. So I'm going to go ahead and end that poll, and we always like to share the results. 77044 zip code wins again. At our previous community meetings, that is always the zip code that reigns supreme. So congrats to that zip code, you win. But we all win whenever everyone from those zip codes join, because those zip codes represent the study area. So thank you for participating in that little poll question. So this is a description of what we'll be talking about this evening. We'll do a little round of introductions to the project team. We'll also want to get to know you as well. We'll give an introduction to the study, or a reintroduction for those who might have attended previous community meetings. We'll talk about potential trail opportunities. We'll go over survey results that we've received, and then a sample implementation process, which would be the process that might be undertaken if a project were to move forward. Again, as a reminder, this is a study that was funded by Precinct 1 and led by Precinct 1. With that, I'll turn it over to Megan to introduce our special guest.
Hi, good evening, everyone. We're so happy to have you join us this evening. My name is Megan Palathra. I'm a project coordinator here at Harris County Precinct 1 in the Planning and Infrastructure Department. I'm very happy to introduce a special welcome message by Harris County Precinct 1 Commissioner Rodney Ellis.
Hello, I'm Rodney Ellis. Every Harris County community should have access to quality green spaces, including parks and trails. They improve community health, build social connections, and expand environmental safeguards. Unfortunately, not all Harris County neighborhoods and communities have equitable access to green spaces. Precinct 1 is committed to enhancing green spaces, especially in neighborhoods that have historically been neglected. To improve your Northeast community, Precinct 1 is studying how a trail system could better connect communities in your area along Carpenter's Bayou. Tonight, and throughout this process, we want to hear from you to help us make this project a reality. Your input will guide us in exploring and studying a future hike and bike trail system along Carpenter's Bayou, connecting neighborhoods to regional parks, recreational activities, and other destinations. Thank you for joining us this evening, and be sure to tell your neighbors and friends to get involved with this project to improve your community. Also, thank you to the Houston Parks Board for managing this project. I hope you have a wonderful and productive evening. Thank you.
All right, Megan, turning it back over to you.
Thanks. And for those who have joined us before, some of this may sound like a repeat from previous meetings, but we just want to make sure that we cover this for anyone who's joined us and is new tonight. So we have a great group of folks working on this project for us. And as I introduce the team, I invite you, community members, to go ahead and drop in the chat and let us know your name and which community you live in, or which neighborhood you're coming from. So please feel free to, again, let us know in the chat where you're coming from. And also, if this is your first community meeting that you're joining with us, or if you have attended previous meetings or any of our pop-up events that we have done in a couple of the parks. So we are happy to have you this evening. Thank you for joining us. As Lisa mentioned, Harris County Precinct 1 is sponsoring this study. So I know we do have a few folks from Harris County Precinct 1 on the line. So if you all would like to turn on your cameras and just give everyone a little wave hello, they know who representatives are from Precinct 1. So
sorry, Precinct 1.
Hi from Precinct 1.
My apologies.
And next up, we would like to introduce the Houston Parks Board team who is managing the project for us. So that would be Lisa, John. Thank you guys, Courtney. And next we would like to introduce the Clark Condon staff, who is the design team and the leading the technical side of the study. So please give us a quick wave hello. So also, if we have any elected officials in the room this evening, please go ahead and unmute your mic and say hello. Or if we have any representatives from elected officials' offices, please feel free to say hello or go ahead and let us know in the chat that you're with us tonight. It looks like we have a lot of folks here entering the chat where they're from, and if this is their first meeting or joined us before. So thank you for providing that information. That is super helpful to us. And lastly, we do have the second poll question that Lisa mentioned. We would like to know how you heard about this meeting tonight. This helps us prepare for future events and outreach so that we know how best to reach you.
Thank you so much, Megan. Yes, that should have popped up on your screen just like the first one did. But for if we have people joining on the phone, again, Megan said the question is, how did you hear about this meeting? So we are curious. The precinct does a fantastic job of sending out thousands of postcards and lots of email blasts about the meeting. We also do social media, and we also do signage and flyering in the community, and just a variety of ways we try to reach people. So that's what we want to understand, is how you heard about this meeting. If it was a different way, let us know in the chat as well. That would be great. So I think it's been about, we usually keep poll questions open for a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and end that poll question and share the results. So the postcard and flyer email were neck and neck, but I'm glad someone saw a sign. So that's really good. We put out yard signs in the parks. So we'll go ahead and go to the next slide.
Thanks, Lisa. We'd like to also acknowledge the stakeholders this evening. So we have previously discussed this study with Harris County Flood Control District, Texas Parks and Wildlife, and Generation Park. So we met with each of these entities early on in the process at the outset of the study to share a vision of the study and solicit input on potential trail connections. So thank you to these stakeholders for their early input on the process, and we look forward to potentially working with you in the future. And so in terms of the study goals for this study, I'd like to review just a few things that Commissioner had highlighted earlier, that we believe every community deserves access to safe parks, trails, and green space. It's critically important that we hear from you and your neighbors and on what this means to you. So that's why the goals of this study focus on these key areas. Number one, we want to make sure it involves you in the trail design process, which is why we're here this evening. And number two, we'd like to identify opportunities for the following: safely connect key locations throughout the community and region, connect people to schools and parks and other destinations, improve health by providing access to hike and bike trails, provide safe pedestrian and bicycle routes, and last but not least, create linear park space. So just to give you a recap of kind of the study process and where we are today, we anticipate that this study process will take approximately a year from start to finish. We kicked off the process this February, February 2021, and anticipate the completion in February of next year. The yellow box on the right shows where we are in the overall timeline of events at our third and final community meeting. This process began with gathering information and analysis and developing a preliminary program. We sought feedback on that program in the August community meeting. You can find these videos on our Northeast Trails webpage in case you missed them. Then, using results from that, we established a more refined program, which we reviewed and discussed in our October meeting. Lastly, today's meeting is about presenting you with the results that have been gathered this far and share the next steps in the study as it wraps up early next year. The final study, which we will share once it's completed, likely in February, will provide a more in-depth overview of the proposed trails, their feasibility, and potential costs associated with each project that has been outlined. So I'd just like to quickly reiterate the purpose of the study is to see what projects are most interested to the community, see what the feasibility of these projects are, understand overall costs, and identify an overall network of potential trails. Once the study is complete, we will begin to identify funding and partnership opportunities to help bring projects to life.
Thank you so much, Megan. All right, so in addition to the previous 2 community meetings that we hosted, we also did a variety of outreach in person. We had in-person little pop-ups at some of the parks, including Jean Green Park, Dewson Park, and formerly Stone Terrace Park, which is now Resilience Trail off of Tidwell Road, operated by the Parkway UD. And so we were really excited to do that outreach in person, meet people where they are, and conduct some surveys. So like I said, we had the 2 meetings. We had like 4 different pop-ups at the parks, and we also had this ongoing survey that we had open for quite a while for people to give their input. So at this time, I'm going to kind of give an overall recap of our community outreach. And I'm starting off with who we interacted with. So a high majority of people, we did interact with social media. People are on their phones a lot, so they're very easily accessible. But we also did interact with people, like I said, through in-person meetings and virtual events. And so 66% were in-person interactions that involved a survey. So that was really exciting that we got a lot of responses on our survey that asked key questions, like Megan said, to accomplish the goals of the study. Overall, we had more than 10,000 touch points. And I say that don't think of it as 10,000 people, think of it as touch points. That means that if a person clicked on a post, if a person took a survey, if someone attended the community meeting, if someone, saw something come up on their feed, that's what we include for touch points. But we're really excited that we had a reach that was that extensive. Our goal, we set a little bit lower. There were some challenges associated with, operating in mainly a virtual environment. I'm sure this is a lot of people's not their first community meeting online. So as you know, there are challenges with reaching people. However, 10,000 touch points total. And so we were really excited about that. And we're thankful for people that, that can represent someone who attended multiple meetings or events that we held. And we also are very appreciative of people joining us for the first time this evening. So these are, this is a recap of people who took the survey. Over 50% of people were between 30 and 50 years old. Over 70%, a little over 70% of people were people of color. We do like to ask ethnicity in our surveys. And last, 54% lived in the zip code 77044, which, as you saw, and most of the people are in this meeting from that zip code in our previous meeting, so well represented. So thank you to all who took that survey and filled out those questions. One of the key questions we asked on the survey was which park people visited the most. We wanted to know that if you had a day free or an evening time after work, which park would you choose to go to? And Dewson Park was the top winner, followed by Jean Green Park and Sheldon Lake State Park. So that helped us know where people might want to go. These were three additional, each circle kind of represents three questions that we asked on the survey. We asked a question about how often people visit parks, and 45, almost 50% visited parks more than 3 times per week, which is awesome. We know that people have hectic schedules, but that people can use parks for respite and for exercise, which helps with our hectic schedule. So almost 50% visited parks more than 3 times a week, which was exciting to learn. We asked a question about if they had a trail, would they visit places that are currently not accessible to them? Overwhelming majority said yes, almost 100% would go to those places had they had access via a trail network. And 90% of the people we spoke with already use trails. And so, as I mentioned, obviously there were people we talked to at parks that were using the trails, but remember, this survey was also online. It was pushed out via email and social media and through our peers and our partners. So we think that is a good representation. So 90% use trails. These are three, again, each circle kind of represents 3 questions we asked in that survey. This represents what we asked people, what they use the trails for. So overwhelming majority said 65% use trails for exercise, but we know that people also can use these to get to places in their community and work. So small percentage said commuting. I've always been very impressed with this statistic. We asked people how far they would travel to get to a trail. So that's your commute, your route that you would walk or bike to get to a trail. And people said 41% said they would travel 2 miles to visit a park, which I found really, really great. And most people would like to use trails to go to parks. We asked them where they would like to use it to get to places, whether it be school or place of worship. And so people's overwhelming majority said they would use it to get to their parks. The survey was really easy to fill out, and so we just wanted to take the opportunity to highlight to you what we learned throughout the study, which helped inform our decisions. And so Mary from Clark Condon is going to take you through that right now. So Mary.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
So the last question of the survey that we asked was in regards to some connectivity opportunities. So part of our process is trying to understand where people want to go and how we can connect people to the different parks within the region. So we had 10 off-street trails identified as part of this process. You can see them all illustrated on the map. All of these trails connect to different types of amenities, most of them directly to parks within this region. And so as part of this, we asked for people to rank which one was their highest priority. And so that was one element that went into helping provide all of the information that Megan identified at the beginning of the meeting, looking, as part of the desire, some of the feasibility, and then also, integrating that into the overall cost. So if you go to the next slide, what we've done is developed a matrix of all of these 10 different park spaces or trail areas. And you can also see on here on the far left side of the screen, we have included the priority. So those rankings that you see there, the number 1 that is adjacent to zone 5 was the most preferred connection within the community. And then the second one was zone 1. So this is one piece of the puzzle that informs how these trails could potentially be implemented in the future, but there are other considerations as part of this. One of the things that we look at as part of the process is the overall population, how many people we're able to access. And so as part of this, we've looked at how many people live within a quarter mile of the trail, and will have that ability to immediately walk to the trail. And so we've listed out the population shown here. Some other elements that play into this, which is the construction complexity. And this is part of what really determines the feasibility. And some of the things that go into the complexity of the design are elements like trails that need slope repairs, or trails that may need bridge structures or large culvert structures over drainage ways. Trails that are also potentially complex to construct are those that cross utility easements and may have certain clearances required for the trail itself above those utilities. So those are some of the components that would inform the level of complexity. And you can see, for example, on Zone 2, this is the connection from Jean Green Park to Wallaceville Road. I believe this is our most complex trail. And part of the reason is this is one that we believe there are some slope and erosion issues along Carpenter's Bayou that would need attention in order to facilitate a trail. Another component of this are the agency approvals. And when we say agencies, these include not only permitting through Harris County and Harris County Flood Control, it also includes permitting, say, through Centerpoint easements or with the gas pipeline companies that often are within those easements. And so once again, on Zone 2, you can see we have a number of those approvals required. This particular location crosses through a Centerpoint easement that has numerous pipelines within it. So the importance of that is the agency approvals, they add time to the design time and the permit time, which make the implementation occur at a much slower pace than some of the others that require less agency approvals and less complexity for construction. And then the final component to this is the cost. So we've provided a rough estimate of cost to help inform the funding and potential partners so that the precinct can look at this over the next few years and start to plan out, considering this part of cost in conjunction with the construction complexity and approvals and things like that. So the cost, what informs that is not only the complexity of the construction, elements like bridges are more expensive and things like that, but it also includes potentially the length of the trail. So the longer the trail, the higher the cost is going to be. In addition to, the more complex, the higher the cost will be. So those are just a couple of the factors that inform all of the planning portion of this, and which will be taken into consideration in the future. So since this was just a planning study in itself, we have categorized all this information and we'll be documenting it in the final report. There are also, these were all of the off-street trails. There were also some on-street connections that are more associated with the roadways and potential improvements there that we've identified overall to be as part of the larger trail network. So all of that information is being documented and included in the report. And I'd like to point out on this page, the third community priority was the Zone 7, and this was the connection from the Sheldon ISD to roughly where Tidwell Road was along one of the Harris County flood control channels. So you can see on here, just comparatively looking at the different segments, they vary in complexity depending on the locations. Some require more agency approvals, and then the cost as well varies greatly depending on the 10 different trail segments. And so we wanted to spend a little more time talking about the 3 priority trails in a bit more detail. So this is the first priority trail located along Lake Houston Parkway. It extends from Houston Park up in the upper right, and then connects all the way along Lake Houston Parkway under Beltway 8. The southern connection ties to some improvements that Precinct 1 is currently working on at C.E. King Parkway. And then the north connection connects over to Lockwood with plans. The pink lines are future connections planned by Generation Park. So there's potential connections to tie into Generation Park. And then also the yellow lines show what we intend to have identified as a potential on-street connection as well as part of the study. The black dashed lines that you see on the screen are some long-term vision connections that we think could exist within Generation Park and along Carpenter's Bayou. And these are the connections that require those partnerships and coordination with the stakeholders, which Megan identified at the beginning of the study. So altogether, this segment shown in red is one of those central spines as part of the overall study. As you can see how it connects between Dewson Park all the way to the Beltway. On the next slide, we have a few images of some of the considerations that went into cost, some of the existing conditions. You can see there is one center point easement that would be crossed to facilitate this trail. We also have a second pipeline easement, which you see on the picture on the right. So there's numerous pipelines that would require coordination with. But the biggest advantage is the fact that with the picture on the lower left, this has a very wide right-of-way. So the trail can be set off far from the road and still provide access along, closer to the tree line, and a great experience for trail users. I think we have one question about this segment. It says, how do you cross the feeder roads? So the intent would be that there would be improved signalized crossings at all of the feeder roads and at the Beltway. So we'd have designated crosswalks to ensure that there's safe passage underneath the Beltway. And then this is a picture of what we would envision the trail to be like along the right-of-way with a larger 300-foot wide right-of-way portions of this segment. And on the next trail system, this is the one that extends from Jean Green Park north to Sheldon Lake State Park. That is all of the trail shown there in the center of the screen in red. And so this would provide the connectivity linking together to these major parks within the region. There's a few challenges with this development, including crossing under US 90 and then running a trail along Business 90. So those are areas that require some infrastructure improvements. But the idea is to provide and link this connectivity between these two parks. You can also see the black dashed lines. So those are the future ambitions. So it would tie into a larger network. The one above the Sheldon Sports Complex, that would be a future expansion of Tidwell Road. So really trying to link together access for the communities north of Business 90 and west of the Beltway, all the way down to Jean Green Park. So it really starts to open up opportunities for the larger community to access these parks.
And just to emphasize, the smaller dashed lines are just outlining the community priority trail. It's not another trail network.
That's correct. So a couple of photos of the existing conditions. What you see in the upper photo is the Harris County Flood Control Maintenance Path that's within the park. So if you've been to the park and are familiar with it, we envision that the trail would be located on that maintenance path and extend all the way north to Highway 90. And then another component of this is also crossing under US 90. So roads in general, they have many drainage issues and storm pipes. There's a couple that you can see in the photo. Yes, right there's one of them, and there's a few more that exist under this location. So that's where the complexity of the design comes in, navigating around this drainage infrastructure. But all of those components have been taken into consideration in both the complexity and the cost for budgeting and planning purposes. And we envision the crossings under the roadways to be similar to what you see on the left, ensuring that we have adequate clearance and wide pathways. And then there is also one potential area that we're considering the opportunity or the possibility of a wetland. So there may be an opportunity for using some of these boardwalk structures to help protect that natural environment.
And people can go see this boardwalk, not too far, right within Brock Park.
It's in Brock Park, that's right. And then the last priority trail network is the one that connects from the C.E. King High School. And then this is a trail along one of the Harris County flood control drainage channels, and it extends through several communities and ultimately connects all the way down to Tidwell Road, just south of Garrett Detention Basin, where you see the P100 shown on the screen. That is Greens Bayou to help orient everyone. So it really is a long length of trail, so that's what contributes to the expense on this one. There's also several instances where the trail connects under the roadway, so you can see all the little green dots on the screen. Those represent any of those undercrossings that would need to occur. And this trail, some of the considerations that went into it in regards to existing conditions. On the photo on the right, what you see is where the maintenance path is that Harris County Flood Control currently uses. That's what's where the dirt is shown. So the idea would be to align the trail within that space. And as you can see, there's a significant buffer between that area and the existing fence. Some other considerations are crossing underneath the John Ralston Bridge. So this particular bridge has some adjacent utilities, but once again, ensuring that we have adequate clearance under the utilities for both bikes and maintenance vehicles to cross within that space. And then the other elements as part of this, there is one center point easement that crosses this trail segment. So you can see the towers, and then once again, as typically found within these easements, there are several gas pipelines that would require coordination. But all of this has been documented and accounted for in the study. And this is how we envision the space looking, having a nice wide trail along this area with some additional planting closer to the fence line, and still providing adequate space for both the backslope swale and the Harris County maintenance that is required.
And we wanted to just provide a sample implementation schedule to help you better understand how these trail projects come to life. So this is what we might consider a typical trail project. What this timeline does not include is the forefront work to establish funding opportunities or partners, identify maintenance partners if needed, or select and finalize contracts for engineering or design work of the project. And that part can take, you know, a short amount of time or a long amount of time, depending on, you know, the partnerships and the funding that's already in place. So I just wanted to point that out as we go through the schedule. The components are required before we can start work that I mentioned about just now, and can vary depending on the project. So here we show just a quick glimpse of the various pieces that go into the design, permitting, and construction of the trails projects. As you can see from this timeline, the complexity of the projects, you can go from anywhere from 3 years, which are 36 months, all the way to 4 years or 48 months. Some projects may be simpler and some more complex, but hopefully this gives you an idea of a typical time frame for a new trail. And just quickly, you know, these items that are listed here include field work, survey, geo and technical and environmental survey. That takes approximately 2 to 4 months. Construction drawings take anywhere from 7 to 9 months. City and county permitting, that takes you know, between 4 and 6 months. Outside permitting for pipelines, railroads, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers can take you know, 12 to 18 months, and then the bidding process through the county takes 3 to 4 months, and then construction can take, you know, up to 12 months or more depending on the project. So this is just kind of an overview of what we might call a typical project, but as Mary showed earlier, depending on the specific trail, some can be a lot more complex, or even, you know, a little bit more simple and move more quickly. So hopefully this will help give you an overall idea of a typical project. And before I jump into next steps for the study, I'd just like to take a moment to thank everyone who's participated in this study. We understand these have been some trying times over the last year, And so we sincerely appreciate your input that we have received through email, through the online survey, through interactions with y'all at the pop-up events in our parks, and throughout your participation in these 3 community meetings. We'd also like to thank the design team and Houston Parks Board for thoroughly investigating these trails and opportunities, as well as identifying challenges for a future trail network in this region. So for the next steps, the first step will be just to finalize the study. And so we are eagerly awaiting kind of the final report, as Mary had mentioned, that will include more of the details that we started to walk through this evening, but there will be a final report coming out, we anticipate in February of next year. And you can expect to receive an email from us once that report is published and put out to the community. So we'll also include that on our Northeast Trails webpage, which I know Courtney had just posted in the chat here. If you want to click on a link to that, we'll be including the final study report there as well. So once the final report comes out, the next step would be to kind of just really evaluate the results and the outcomes of this report. So to get a better understanding of the complexity and the costs associated with each project, and understand, at this point, we understand that the community priorities as identified previously in those slides that Mary presented in terms of at least the top 3 community priorities. And the next thing we would do is to look for funding and maintenance partners, including reaching out to potential partners such as management districts, municipal utility districts or MUDs, HOAs, other local government or state partnerships, and search for federal or grant funding opportunities. So as you know, these trail projects can vary in cost. And so there's a lot of trail, a lot of miles of trail, and we would not be able to fund all of these on our own. So we are open to partnerships. We are looking for ways to help fund these projects. So please reach out to us if you are a community member and know of potential partnerships, or if you're part of a utility district and would like to be part of this process. We are definitely excited to partner with others as we implement projects for this study. And lastly, just is one other item that we're currently going through is the county is going through a process of redrawing our precinct boundaries based on the 2020 census. So we need to evaluate projects on our new precinct boundaries once these have been firmly established and adopted and the redistricting process is complete. So we don't have a specific timeline of when that will be quite yet, but once that is finalized, then we will know which of the areas in the study are firmly in our precinct. So we will continue to keep our website updated as we make recommendations, announcements about specific projects. You can also subscribe on our webpage to get email updates on this particular project and study. And we can drop a link in the chat. I think we've got a couple there now to our website, so you can go there, subscribe, and we can keep you up to date as new information becomes available. So we want to keep you informed and engaged as we have more information about specific projects, budgets, timelines, all of those things. But we are excited to kind of wrap this study up and begin to start thinking about those next steps.
Thank you so much, Megan. Appreciate it. Oh, sorry, you had one more slide, unless I didn't mean to cut you off.
No problem. So lastly, we just want to close with this map showing all the connectivity opportunities that were considered as part of this process to develop a network of trails to better connect people with parks, trails, schools, and other destinations in the area along Carpenter's Bayou and surrounding neighborhoods. So the final study will reveal more detailed analysis of the trail network include maps and other reference materials that Mary had referenced previously. We look forward to using these concepts from this study as kind of a long-term roadmap for future trail improvements in the region. So at this time, I'd like to just turn it over to Lisa to see if we have any questions.
Thank you so much, Megan. Yes, we are at the question and answer portion of the evening. So what I'd like to do first is take the questions that we've received in the chat that we haven't answered, and then open it up for people to use the raised hand feature emoji, which you can find in your menu. You can raise your hand. That way you'll pop to near on my screen, you'll pop up and I'll be able to see that you have a question. If anyone's joining on the phone, you press *6 to unmute yourself. And that's how we can hear you if you have a question. Again, *6 if you're on your phone. And if you can't find the raise hand emoji, if you're joining on Zoom, just unmute yourself or type in the chat that you would like me to unmute yourself. I've gotten it a variety of ways. We'll make sure you have your time to speak. But first off, we got a question about handicap accessibility. Will these trails be, ADA compliant? And so I'll turn that over to Mary or Megan to answer, but I know that generally we want all people of all abilities to enjoy these trails. And as y'all saw, the trails are in a variety of different settings and topography.
That's correct. So main trail corridors, we do anticipate that they would be accessible. And we also, in our planning study, has assumed from a cost perspective of using smooth, stable surfaces that'll allow for that. And then they're also currently allocated to be of a 10-foot width so that it's great for families to access and utilize as groups. There are some instances that are in more of the natural areas where there may be some considerations in future planning to have some options to provide, that are more earthen or gravel options that provide access to more sensitive areas. So there will be a combination of different types of surfaces, but there will be many trails that are accessible.
And Mary, in that final report, the types of trail like what the trail might consist of, like whether it be concrete or more natural, would that be something that people might find in the report?
Yes. Sorry, I remuted, but yes.
We're not off the hook yet. All right, thank you so much. We received another question about funding for the trail. So I know, Megan, you mentioned this briefly on the last slide, but we did ask if property tax dollars might be a funding mechanism for these projects.
So I know the precinct has several different sources of funding. And, for these specific trails, I'd like to just double check with Amar, who I think is on the line in terms of, typically how we fund our trail projects and the sources for those projects.
You popped up like magic. Hi, Amar. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Amar Mohete. I'm with the Harris County Precinct 1, Office of Commissioner Rodney Ellis, and I'm the Director of Capital Projects for the precinct. So you're absolutely right. A number of our trails serve the function of mobility, allows people to move, especially people without access to vehicles. They use that for transportation. It also improves circulation within an area. So we use typically what we have mobility funds to improve mobility and accessibility of people for people of all ages and abilities. That is the goal with which the precinct designs these trails or bikeway projects within the region. So we typically use the precinct's mobility funds. And we also pursue, the goal is to pursue funding through other sources. As Megan mentioned, we do projects in partnership with other entities. And we also are not shy of pursuing federal funding or state funding for improving accessibility in our precinct.
Thank you so much, Amar. Appreciate it. We hope those answer the questions that were sent to us in the chat. At this time, we are at 6:54, so just 5 minutes from meeting closing. We want to open it up for any other questions that people might have. So Please go ahead and unmute yourself or raise your hand if you have questions. And if there are no questions, then I think we did a great job of getting the.
Hi, this is Brenda McNeil.
Hi, Brenda.
Yes, I have a question. I don't know if you stated it and I missed it. In your final selection, how many projects will you be selecting out of the ones that are presented? Will you only be making one selection out of the projects from the survey and everything?
Brenda, I can answer that question. There is the goal is to identify projects that we can move forward with. It may be possible that we break one project into multiple pieces, depending on what is feasible, what we have partnerships for. So there is, we are at this point, we are going to evaluate the findings of the study and see what funding partnerships we can establish to move these projects forward. Our goal is, the purpose of the study was to identify priorities and see how we can move these projects forward. But as you can see from the feasibility exercise that Mary explained, not all projects have the same degree of ease of implementation. Not all projects have the same degree of cost of implementation. And sometimes it's really the partnerships that encourages us to implement the project, because we have found a way to fund the project and found a way to work through some of the challenges to implement the project. So I think sometimes it's just those kinds of opportunities move these projects forward. So the next step would be to look at the report from the consultants and engage with all the partners in the study area to look at how can we prioritize projects that are recommended by this study.
So all your projects, are you basing them all on partnership, or are some solely going to be done via Harris County, or is your sole objective is just for partnerships with other entities?
As I mentioned, we will evaluate all of those things. Everything is on the table. It just depends. These are not necessarily small projects. These are pretty robust projects. Let me put it that way. And so that we would reach out to partners, and then we'll evaluate. We'll pursue federal funding. Also, there's a call for federal funding coming in next year. So for projects that are really that are less complicated to pursue federal funding, an example of that would be somewhere we don't have to acquire right of way. Would be good candidate to pursue federal funding. So I think all of that has to be taken into consideration as we identify. And again, I know what neighborhood you live in, and we'll be reaching out to your MUD to see if there are any partnership opportunities in your MUD.
Thank you so much, Amar, for answering her question. We're at 6:58. We do have 2 minutes. I want to make sure to have one final opportunity for anyone else to ask questions, comments, or concerns about the study or about next steps. All right then. Well, we appreciate everyone joining us this evening. As Megan said, and as I said earlier, this is the final community meeting. I'm a bit sad, but we hopefully will see you again. We are excited that we did complete a series of 3 meetings. We had to pivot to virtual meetings. And so we appreciated each and every one of you that did make an effort and give us some of your time during the series of 3 community meetings, as well as if you interacted with us at the pop-up events or took the survey, or maybe all 3. So we appreciate all of your time, and anything, as Megan said, we want to communicate will be done through Harris County Precincts 1 email blast, as well as being posted on the website. Usually within a week of our community meetings, they post a PDF of this presentation along with the recording. And for those who join late, We are recording this meeting in English and in Spanish, if you didn't know. So we do post a PDF of this presentation along with a recording in English and in Spanish. And we would ask you to please share that out with others, you know, that maybe weren't able to go to these meetings. And so any future news about this effort will be communicated through Harris County Precinct 1. And thank you so much to Courtney. Place a link to the webpage in the chat. So with that, it is officially 7 p.m. We were great on time. We're ending right on time this evening. So thank you very much to Harris County Precinct 1 for funding and leading this really, really important exploration study. And thank you to everyone who participated. Your input was very important and critical to us, and we'll be in touch with you. So with that, I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday, and the most wonderful time of our meeting has come, to where we all put ourselves on camera and say hello. So I stopped sharing my screen. So if you want to say wave a final goodbye as you all leave the meeting, I'll take a little screenshot here. Okay, so we can have that for our records. So if you want to go on camera and wave hello, I'll go ahead and get that in 3, 2, 1. Wave hello. There we go. Yay. All right, I captured y'all. Fantastic. Well, thank you again for attending. Everyone have a wonderful holiday season and be safe out there. Bye-bye.